Camila Torres stood before the antique mirror in the bridal suite, her hands trembling as she smoothed the delicate lace of her wedding gown. The dress hugged her curves perfectly, cascading down in layers of silk that caught the afternoon light streaming through the tall windows. She had spent 2 years saving for this dress, working double shifts at the cafe, skipping meals, all for this moment. "You look absolutely beautiful," came a familiar voice from behind her. Camila turned to see Natasha Reed, her best friend since their days at St. Mary's Orphanage, standing in the doorway. Natasha wore the emerald bridesmaid dress they had picked together, her dark hair pulled into an elegant updo. "I can't believe this is really happening," Camila whispered, her eyes glistening with happy tears. "After everything we went through at the orphanage, after all those nights we dreamed about having families of our own." Natasha stepped closer, adjusting Camila's veil with careful fingers. "Derek is lucky to have you. Though I wonder if you're ready for his world. The Sinclair family is different from what we knew." Something flickered in Natasha's expression, but Camila was too caught up in her emotions to notice. The distant sounds of guests arriving filled the air, mixing with the soft music playing from speakers hidden throughout the garden venue. Whispers behind closed doors. The wedding coordinator poked her head into the room. "Miss Torres, we're starting in 15 minutes. The groom and his family are already at the altar." Camila nodded, her heart racing. Natasha checked her phone, her fingers moving quickly across the screen. "I need to use the restroom before we start. Be right back." As Natasha disappeared down the hallway, Camila practiced her breathing exercises. She thought about how she had met Derek Sinclair 2 years ago when he had walked into the cafe where she worked. He had ordered a simple coffee but stayed for 3 hours, charmed by her smile and her stories of growing up without parents. He had promised her something she had never had, belonging. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Camila glanced at her phone. Where was Natasha? The ceremony would start any moment. A sound caught her attention. Low voices, followed by what sounded like breathless laughter. It came from the storage room at the end of the hall, the one the venue staff used for extra chairs and decorations. Camila's feet moved before her mind could stop them. The closer she got, the clearer the sounds became. Her hand reached for the doorknob, and she pushed it open just a crack. The truth that burns. The scene before her eyes shattered every dream she had ever built. Derek, her groom, was pressed against Natasha, his hands tangled in her hair. Their lips were locked in a kiss that spoke of familiarity, of months or perhaps years of practice. The emerald dress was rumpled, Derek's shirt partially unbuttoned. The bouquet Camila had been holding slipped from her fingers, hitting the floor with a soft thud that seemed to echo like thunder. Natasha pulled away from Derek slowly, deliberately. When she turned to face Camila, there was no shock in her expression. Instead, her lips curved into a smile that looked almost satisfied. "Oh," Natasha said, her voice carrying a strange mixture of mock surprise and triumph. "I suppose this was bound to happen eventually." Camila's mouth opened, but no words came out. Her brain struggled to process what her eyes were seeing. This had to be a nightmare. This couldn't be real. Derek stepped back from Natasha, running a hand through his disheveled hair. His face showed annoyance rather than guilt. "Camila, don't make a scene. We can talk about this later." "Talk about this?" Camila's voice finally broke through, raw and shaking. "You're kissing my best friend minutes before our wedding. When dreams become nightmares." Natasha laughed, a cold sound that seemed to suck the warmth from the room. "Your best friend? Camila, you really are naive. Did you honestly think someone like Derek would marry someone like you out of love?" The words hit like physical blows. Camila took a step back, her wedding dress suddenly feeling like it weighed 1,000 pounds. "What are you talking about?" Natasha moved closer, her heels clicking against the floor. "You're an orphan. A nobody who serves coffee for a living. Derek felt sorry for you. We all did. It was cute how grateful you were for every little bit of attention he gave you. That's not true, Camilla whispered, but even as she said it, doubt crept into her voice. She looked at Derek, desperate for him to deny it, to tell her this was all some terrible misunderstanding. Derek sighed, checking his watch as if this conversation was merely an inconvenience in his schedule. Look, Camilla, you're sweet. But Natasha and I have been together for over a year. We have chemistry. We understand each other's world. A year? The timeline crashed over Camilla like a wave. That meant they had been together almost from the beginning. Every anniversary dinner, every promise of forever, every time she had confided in Natasha about her hopes and fears, all of it had been a lie. The fall. Rage erupted in Camilla's chest, hot and consuming. She lunged toward Derek, her hand raised to slap him, to do something, anything to make him feel a fraction of the pain tearing through her heart. But Derek caught her wrist mid-swing. His grip was firm, almost painful. Don't embarrass yourself more than you already have. Let go of me. Camilla tried to pull away, but Derek's other hand came up to her shoulder. He pushed her, hard. Camilla stumbled backward in her heels, her wedding dress tangling around her legs. She hit the doorframe and then the floor, the impact knocking the air from her lungs. Her veil tore as it caught on something, the delicate lace ripping with a sound that seemed symbolic of everything breaking inside her. Derek. A woman's voice called from down the hallway. Patricia Sinclair, Derek's mother, appeared in the doorway. She looked at the scene with cold calculation rather than concern. Her eyes swept over Camilla on the floor, then to her son and Natasha standing together. Mother, she's making a scene, Derek said, his voice dripping with disdain. Patricia stepped over Camilla as if she were an obstacle rather than a person. Get up. You're embarrassing our family in front of our guests. Camilla pushed herself up on shaking arms. Your son was kissing my best friend before our wedding. And whose fault is that? Patricia's words were ice. A woman who can't even keep her man interested? Perhaps you should have tried harder instead of playing the victim. The gathering storm. The commotion had drawn attention. Guests began crowding the hallway, their expensive perfumes mixing in the air, their whispers creating a horrible buzzing sound in Camilla's ears. Natasha stepped forward, addressing the crowd with a theatrical sadness. Everyone, I'm so sorry. Camilla has been under tremendous stress. The pressure of joining the Sinclair family, being with someone so far above her station. I think it's finally gotten to her. That's not what happened. Camilla's voice cracked. She looked at the faces around her, Derek's business partners, Patricia's society friends, people she had tried so hard to impress and befriend over the past 2 years. Not one of them looked at her with sympathy. Derek moved to stand beside his mother. Camilla, you need to calm down. Think about what you're doing. If you walk away now, you'll go back to being nobody. No family, no money, no future. Is that really what you want? The cruelty of his words, the transactional nature of what she had thought was love, hit Camilla with the force of a freight train. Her chest typefaces around her blurred together. I thought you loved me, she whispered. Derek's response was matter-of-fact, devoid of any emotion. Love doesn't pay bills, Camilla. Love doesn't build empires. You were a charity case that got out of hand. The world tilted. Camilla's vision darkened at the edges. She heard Natasha say something else, something cutting and final, but the words were lost in the rushing sound filling her ears. Her knees buckled. The floor rose up to meet her. And then there was nothing but darkness. The sound of sirens cut through the chaos of the garden venue. Guests stepped back, creating a circle around Camilla's unconscious form, her white dress spread around her like broken wings. Some whispered behind their hands. Others filmed on their phones, already planning how to share this scandal on social media. Move aside, please. A firm voice commanded. Emergency services, let us through. Sebastian Morales jumped from the ambulance before it had fully stopped, his medical bag in one hand, his partner right behind him. At 32, he had spent the last 5 years as a paramedic, having walked away from his family's business empire to do something that actually mattered. His father still hadn't forgiven him for choosing saving lives over counting money. As Sebastian pushed through the crowd, his phone buzzed insistently in his pocket. He ignored it, focusing on the woman lying motionless on the ground. Her face was pale, her breathing shallow but steady. He knelt beside her, his trained hands already checking her pulse, her pupils, looking for signs of injury. The phone buzzed again. And again. With a frustrated sigh, Sebastian answered without looking at the caller ID. I'm working. You're running out of time. Ricardo Morales's voice was as cold as always, the voice of a man who built a billion-dollar empire through ruthless efficiency. The movers are at your apartment now. Everything you own is being packed as we speak. Sebastian's jaw clenched. Father, I'm literally with a patient. I don't care if you're operating on the president. You will come home. You will meet the women I've selected. You will choose one and get married within the month. Ricardo paused for emphasis. You're my only son, Sebastian. The Morales legacy needs an heir. Your little rebellion is over. Between two worlds. Sebastian wanted to argue, to remind his father that he was a grown man who had earned the right to make his own choices. But years of experience had taught him that arguing with Ricardo Morales was like arguing with a hurricane, pointless and exhausting. Sir? His partner tapped his shoulder. She's coming around. Sebastian refocused on his patient. The woman's eyelids fluttered. Her lips moved, trying to form words. He leaned closer, one hand gently supporting her head. Easy now, he said softly. You fainted. Can you tell me your name? Camila, she whispered. Her eyes opened fully, confusion and pain swirling in their depths. Where? You're at the wedding venue. I'm Sebastian, a paramedic. You had quite a fall. Do you remember what happened? The question seemed to trigger something. Camila's eyes suddenly focused with sharp clarity. She looked past Sebastian to where Derek stood with his arms crossed, Natasha beside him looking annoyed rather than concerned. Patricia Sinclair was speaking rapidly to a man in an expensive suit, probably trying to control the damage to her family's reputation. A desperate gamble tears began streaming down Camila's face, but her expression wasn't one of sadness anymore. It was determination mixed with something that looked almost like madness. Will you marry me? The question hung in the air like a thunderclap. The guests who had been pretending not to listen suddenly fell completely silent. Sebastian blinked, certain he had misheard. I'm sorry, what? Camila grabbed his arm with surprising strength for someone who had just regained consciousness. Will you marry me? Right now. Today. Please. She's lost her mind, Natasha announced loudly, her voice dripping with cruel amusement. This is pathetic even for you, Camila. Throwing yourself at the first man who shows you any kindness. Sebastian looked into Camila's eyes. He had been a paramedic long enough to recognize desperation, but this was something else. This was a woman who had been pushed to the absolute edge and was making one final, impossible leap. And in that moment, with his father's ultimatum still echoing in his mind, Sebastian saw an opportunity. Not a romantic one, not a noble one, but a practical solution to both their problems. Yes, he heard himself say. I'll marry you. The ceremony of chaos. The reaction was immediate and explosive. Derek surged forward, his face red with anger. This is insane. Camila, you can't seriously. I can and I will, Camila interrupted, her voice growing stronger. She let Sebastian help her to her feet, leaning on him for support. I spent 2 years planning this wedding. I invited everyone I knew. I paid for everything with money I saved working 16-hour days. I'm getting married today." Patricia Sinclair laughed, a harsh sound like breaking glass. "To a paramedic? Oh, this is perfect. From one poor decision to an even worse one." Natasha stepped forward, her smirk widening. "Look at you, so desperate for a family that you'll marry a complete stranger. What's next, Camila? Are you going to beg him to love you too?" Sebastian felt something protective flare in his chest. He had only known this woman for 5 minutes, but the cruelty being directed at her was unconscionable. He straightened to his full height, fixing Natasha with a cold stare. "That's enough. Camila is making a choice, which is more than can be said for people who sneak around behind their friends' backs." He turned to the elderly priest who had been standing frozen in shock. "Father, can you marry us? Right now?" The priest looked between Sebastian, Camila, and the angry Sinclair family. "Well, this is highly irregular." "Please," Camila said quietly. "I have the license. All the papers are ready. Only the groom's name needs to change." Sebastian pulled out his ID and handed it to the priest. As the elderly man examined it, Sebastian caught sight of Derek's face. The man was practically vibrating with rage. "This is my wedding," Derek snarled. "I paid for this venue. I invited these guests. You can't just—" "Actually," Sebastian interrupted calmly, "if you paid for it, then technically you have no claim once you decided not to marry the bride. The venue, the decorations, the food, all of it was for Camila's wedding day. She's simply choosing a different groom." Patricia stepped forward, her eyes narrowed to slits. "Do you have any idea who you're dealing with? The Sinclair family has connections throughout this city. We could ruin you." Sebastian met her gaze steadily. "I'm sure you could try." What none of them knew was that Sebastian Morales had more connections than the entire Sinclair family combined. His father's company, Morales Industries, practically owned half the city's infrastructure. One phone call and Sebastian could end their business permanently. But he said nothing. Let them think he was just a simple paramedic. Let them underestimate him. Breaking chains. The priest finally nodded. "If both parties are willing and of sound mind, then I suppose I can perform the ceremony. Though I must say, this is the strangest wedding I've ever been part of." As they walked toward the altar, Sebastian felt his phone buzz one more time. He quickly typed a message to his father: "Got married. Cancel your meetings. Call off your matchmakers. And while you're at it, cancel all business dealings with the Sinclair family." He hit send before he could second-guess himself. The ceremony was brief and surreal. Camila's hands shook as she repeated the vows, but her voice never wavered. Sebastian found himself speaking the words with unexpected sincerity. When the priest announced them as husband and wife, a strange electricity passed between them. Behind them, Derek was shouting something about lawyers. Natasha looked like she had bitten into something sour. Patricia had her phone pressed to her ear, undoubtedly calling in favors to try to salvage the situation. "You can kiss the bride," the priest said uncertainly. Sebastian looked at Camila. Really looked at her. Saw the strength beneath the tears, the courage in her eyes despite everything she had been through. Instead of kissing her lips, he gently kissed her forehead. "We'll figure this out," he whispered to her. "I promise." The aftermath. 20 minutes later, Derek's phone rang. He answered it, his face still red with anger. As he listened, though, the color drained away, replaced by an ashen gray. "What do you mean the contract is cancelled?" His voice rose to a near shriek. "We've had that partnership for 15 years. Natasha grabbed his arm. "What contract?" "Morales Industries. They're pulling out of everything. The shipping deal, the real estate venture, Derek's voice broke. That was 60% of our annual revenue. Patricia snatched the phone from her son's hand. There must be some mistake. Ricardo Morales wouldn't just, hello? Hello? She looked at the dead line, her usual composure finally cracking. This is impossible. We haven't done anything to offend them. But Sebastian, standing 50 feet away with his new bride, heard every word. He allowed himself the smallest smile. His father worked fast when he wanted to. Camila looked up at him, confused by the commotion. What's happening? Nothing you need to worry about, Sebastian said gently. He offered her his arm. Shall we go enjoy your wedding reception? After all, you did plan it for 2 years. As they walked toward the reception area, leaving behind the chaos they had created, neither of them knew that this hasty, impossible marriage would change both their lives in ways they couldn't begin to imagine. Behind them, Derek fell to his knees. Natasha stood frozen, finally understanding that they had destroyed something far more valuable than they had realized. And Patricia Sinclair made frantic call after frantic call, trying to understand how her perfect world had collapsed in the span of an hour. Camila's hands trembled slightly as she unlocked the door to her apartment, very aware of Sebastian standing behind her. The building was old, the kind of place where the elevator only worked half the time and the hallways smelled of whatever the neighbors were cooking. It was nothing like the luxury penthouse Derek had dangled in front of her as their future home. I know it's not much, she said quietly, pushing the door open. But it's mine. I've been living here since I aged out of the orphanage system. Sebastian stepped inside, his eyes taking in everything. The apartment was small, maybe 500 square feet total. The living room and kitchen shared one open space. A narrow hallway led to what he assumed was the bedroom and bathroom. The furniture was clearly second-hand, but everything was immaculately clean and organized. Books lined makeshift shelves made from wooden crates. A small herb garden sat on the windowsill, basil and mint catching the last light of day. It's perfect, Sebastian said, and he meant it. There was something honest about this space, something real that his family's mansion had never possessed despite its marble floors and crystal chandeliers. Camila watched his face carefully, looking for signs of judgment or disappointment. Finding none, she felt some of the tension leave her shoulders. The bedroom is through there. I'll get some pillows and blankets for the couch. Camila. Sebastian turned to face her fully. We're married. We can share the bed. I promise to be respectful. Her cheeks flushed pink. I know, but this all happened so fast. And I need some boundaries. At least for now. Of course. Sebastian's voice was gentle. Whatever makes you comfortable. Building barriers. 20 minutes later, they stood on opposite sides of the bed, staring at the line of pillows Camila had carefully arranged down the center of the mattress. The Berlin Wall, as Sebastian had jokingly called it, consisted of every throw pillow in the apartment plus a rolled-up comforter. This is your side, Camila said, pointing to the left. And this is mine. The pillows stay in place all night. Sebastian bit back a smile. Very clear boundaries. I appreciate that. Camila nodded seriously, then turned to change in the bathroom. When she emerged wearing an oversized t-shirt and shorts, Sebastian had already claimed his side of the bed. He was reading something on his phone, his expression troubled. Everything okay? She asked, climbing carefully into her side. Just family stuff. Sebastian set his phone down. My father is not happy about today's developments. Because you married a stranger? Because I married anyone before he could control the decision. Sebastian's laugh was bitter. He had 3 suitable candidates lined up. All from wealthy families, all with connections he wanted. Camila pulled her knees to her chest. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make your life complicated. You didn't make anything complicated. We both made a choice today. He looked at her across the pillow barrier. Camila, why did you propose to me? Really? She was quiet for a long moment. Because I've never had a family. Growing up in the orphanage, watching other kids get adopted while I stayed behind year after year. I thought Derek was my chance. I thought he saw me as someone worth loving. Her voice cracked. But I was just a project. A charity case that got too comfortable. Sebastian felt anger flare in his chest, not at her, but at the people who had made her feel so small. You're not a charity case. How would you know? You just met me. Because, Sebastian said firmly, charity cases don't save up for 2 years to buy their own wedding dress. They don't work 16-hour days to pay for a wedding. They don't stand up in front of everyone who just hurt them and choose to keep moving forward. That's not charity. That's strength. When walls come down. Camila's eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling. You're very kind for a stranger who just got blackmailed into marriage. I wasn't blackmailed. I chose to say yes. Why though? What could you possibly get out of this? Sebastian considered how much to tell her. Not everything, not yet. Let's just say you're not the only one with family pressure. My father has been demanding I get married for months. You gave me a way to meet his demands on my terms rather than his. So we're both using each other, Camila said, but there was no judgment in her voice. Or we're both helping each other, Sebastian corrected gently. Camila reached over to turn off the lamp on her nightstand. In the darkness, the apartment felt smaller, more intimate. She could hear Sebastian breathing steadily on the other side of the pillow wall. Sebastian, she whispered. Yes? Thank you for today. I mean it. Get some sleep, Camila. Tomorrow is a new day. She closed her eyes, exhaustion finally claiming her. But sleep didn't come immediately. Her mind kept replaying the day's events, trying to make sense of how her life had been completely upended in the span of a few hours. On his side of the bed, Sebastian was having similar thoughts. He wondered what his father would say when they finally spoke. He wondered how long he could keep his true identity hidden from Camila. Most of all, he wondered why he felt so protective of a woman he barely knew. Morning light. Camila woke to sunlight streaming through the thin curtains and the smell of coffee. For a moment, she forgot everything that had happened. Then reality crashed back, and she sat up quickly, her wedding ring catching the morning light. Sebastian was in the kitchen, somehow managing to look put together despite wearing the same clothes from yesterday. He had figured out her ancient coffee maker and was pouring 2 cups. Good morning, wife, he said with a small smile. Good morning, husband, she replied, the words feeling strange on her tongue. She joined him in the kitchen, accepting the coffee cup. I have to work today. My shift starts at 10. At the cafe? Yes. I know it seems crazy after everything, but I can't afford to miss shifts. The bills don't care about personal drama. Sebastian wanted to tell her she would never have to worry about bills again. That he could pay off her entire apartment building with one wire transfer. Instead, he said, I understand. I have a shift at the hospital tonight. Camila studied him over her coffee cup. In the morning light, she could see details she had missed the night before. The expensive watch he wore, probably a gift from before he became a paramedic. The way he carried himself, with a confidence that came from good breeding and education. The small things that suggested he was more than he appeared to be. Sebastian, can I ask you something? Anything. Who are you really? He met her gaze steadily. I'm exactly who I said I am. A paramedic who made some choices his family didn't like. But your father is a businessman who wanted me to follow in his footsteps. I wanted something different. It wasn't technically a lie. Does it matter? Camila thought about this. I guess not. We all have things we don't want to talk about. The wedding dress decision. After Sebastian left for his shift, Camila stood in her small bedroom, staring at the wedding dress hanging on the back of the door. The dress she had saved for, dreamed about, pinned her hopes to. Now it just represented a painful memory. She carefully took it down and spread it across the bed, smoothing out the wrinkles. A few quick photos and she could post it online. Someone else would want a beautiful dress at a discount price. The money would cover rent for 2 months. She was reaching for her phone when Sebastian's voice startled her. You're selling it? She spun around. He was standing in the doorway, his paramedic bag still in hand. I thought you left for work. Forgot my bag. He stepped into the room, his eyes on the dress. Camila, you don't have to sell it. I need the money. We need the money. We'll be fine. Sebastian moved closer. If you love that dress, keep it. It's just a reminder of the worst day of my life. Or, Sebastian said gently, it's proof that you survived the worst day of your life. That you chose yourself when everyone else tried to tear you down. He reached out, fingering the delicate lace. Besides, we might need it for photos. What photos? Well, we should probably have at least one wedding picture, don't you think? For when people ask to see them. Camila laughed despite herself. This is the weirdest marriage in history. Probably. Sebastian grinned. But it's ours. The salon confrontation. 3 days later, Camila decided to treat herself to a manicure. She had been eyeing the luxury salon inside the Morales building, a massive complex that housed everything from offices to shops to a 5-star hotel. She had saved up specifically for this one indulgence. The salon was elegant, all white marble and soft music. Camila checked in at the reception desk, paid for her service up front, and settled into a chair to wait her turn. She was flipping through a magazine when a familiar, sharp voice cut through the peaceful atmosphere. Well, well. Look who thinks she belongs here. Camila's blood ran cold. She looked up to see Natasha and Patricia Sinclair standing in the entrance, both dressed in designer clothes that probably cost more than Camila made in 6 months. This salon is for the Morales building's premium clientele, Patricia said, her voice dripping with disdain. Not for little girls playing dress-up. Camila forced herself to stay calm. I'm a paying customer. I have just as much right to be here as anyone. Natasha laughed, that cruel sound Camila was beginning to hate. With what money? Your paramedic husband's salary? Please. You probably had to save for months just for a basic manicure. The other customers were starting to stare. The salon receptionist looked uncomfortable but didn't intervene. I'd like the full treatment, Natasha announced loudly, addressing the nearest technician. Deluxe pedicure, gel manicure with the imported polish, and the massage upgrade. Miss Reed, I'm sorry, but Miss Torres was here first. Do you know who I am? Natasha's voice went icy. My family has connections with this building's management. I suggest you prioritize appropriately. Standing her ground. Camila stood up, her hands clenched into fists. You can't just. Can't what? Patricia interrupted. Accept reality? You're nobody, Camila. You always have been, and you always will be. That little stunt you pulled at the wedding changed nothing. If anything, you've made your life worse. At least I have dignity, Camila shot back. At least I don't sleep with my best friend's fiancé and then mock her for being hurt. Natasha's face flushed red. You self-righteous. She lunged forward, hands outstretched. Camila tried to step back, but her heel caught on the chair. She stumbled, her arm sweeping across the display shelf beside her. Bottles of expensive nail polish crashed to the floor, glass shattering, exotic colors mixing into a toxic rainbow. The salon fell silent. "Look what you've done." Patricia's voice was triumphant. "You'll pay for every bottle. Do you have any idea how much this will cost?" The receptionist was on her phone, probably calling security. Other customers whispered to each other, phones out, recording. Camila felt the familiar sensation of the world closing in, just like at the wedding, the protection. "Get your hands off my wife." Sebastian's voice was quiet, but it carried absolute authority. He crossed the space in 4 strides, positioning himself between Camila and the Sinclair women. Patricia recovered first, her lip curling in disgust. "The pauper's husband arrives. How touching. I don't suppose you can afford to pay for the damage your clumsy wife just caused." "The damage," Sebastian said calmly, "was caused by harassment and intimidation. I'm sure the security footage will show that clearly." "Security footage?" Natasha laughed. "You think anyone cares what really happened? We're valued clients. You're nobody." Sebastian pulled out his phone. "Would you like to find out what the building management thinks about valued clients assaulting other customers?" Something in his tone must have registered because Patricia faltered slightly. "You can't threaten us." Then the salon door opened, and Sebastian walked in. "I'm not threatening anyone. I'm simply suggesting that perhaps you should leave before this escalates further." The receptionist, who had been watching everything with wide eyes, suddenly straightened in her chair. She had recognized something: the watch on Sebastian's wrist, the ring he wore, the way he carried himself. Her face went pale. "Mr. Moore," she started to say, then caught herself. "Sir, I apologize for this disruption. These ladies were just leaving, weren't they?" Patricia looked at the receptionist in shock. "Excuse me? I'm afraid I must ask you to leave. Harassment of other clients is not tolerated. This is ridiculous." Natasha sputtered. "Do you know who we are?" "Yes," the receptionist said, her voice suddenly firm. "And I know who he is." She didn't elaborate, but her meaning was clear. The power of water. While this exchange was happening, Camila had been standing frozen, shock and anger warring inside her. She looked at Natasha, at the smug expression that had barely faded. At Patricia, who was still looking down her nose at everyone around her. At these women who had taken her dreams and trampled them without a second thought. And something inside her snapped. She walked calmly to the pedicure station where a basin of warm, soapy water sat ready for the next customer. She picked it up with both hands, feeling its weight, its potential. "Camila," Sebastian started, seeing the look in her eyes. But she was already moving. With perfect accuracy, she dumped the entire basin over Natasha's head. The water cascaded down, soaking Natasha's designer dress, ruining her carefully styled hair. Soap suds slid down her face. She stood there, sputtering, looking like a drowned rat. Before Patricia could react, Camila grabbed a second basin and repeated the action. The older woman shrieked as warm water soaked through her expensive suit. The salon erupted. Some people gasped. Others started laughing. Someone applauded. Camila set down the empty basin and met Natasha's furious gaze. "That," she said clearly, "is for betraying me. For lying to me. For making me think I was worth less than nothing." She turned to Patricia. "And that's for raising a son who thinks love is transactional." Sebastian couldn't help it. He started laughing. Not just a chuckle, but a full, genuine laugh that seemed to release all the tension in the room. "You." Natasha could barely speak through her rage and humiliation. "You'll pay for this." "Actually," the receptionist interjected, speaking with new confidence, "you'll be paying for the water damage to our furniture. And you're both banned from this salon. Permanently. Consequences." Security arrived to escort Natasha and Patricia out. They went, dripping and furious, leaving puddles of water and wounded pride in their wake. The other salon customers broke into genuine applause. When they were gone, Camila started to shake. The adrenaline was wearing off, and reality was setting in. Oh God, I can't believe I did that. Sebastian put his arm around her shoulders. I can. And it was magnificent. The receptionist approached them cautiously. Mrs. Morales, I'm so sorry about their behavior. Please, let me comp your full service today. And anything else you might want. Camila blinked. Mrs. Morales? No, my last name is Torres. Actually, Sebastian said quietly, you changed your name when we got married, remember? You're Camila Morales now. She looked up at him, seeing something in his expression that made her heart skip. There was pride there, and protectiveness, and something else she couldn't quite identify. Morales, she repeated softly, testing the name. Camila Morales. It suits you, Sebastian said, and he meant it. As they sat down for her manicure, which had evolved into the full deluxe treatment, Camila couldn't stop replaying the moment of throwing that water. For the first time in her life, she had stood up for herself without apology. And it felt amazing. Sebastian, she said as the technician worked on her nails. Yes? Why do people keep looking at you funny? Like they recognize you but aren't sure from where? He was quiet for a moment. I used to work in this building. Before I became a paramedic. It wasn't the full truth, but it wasn't a lie either. Camila accepted it, though she filed away the information for later. The call. That night, back in the apartment, Sebastian's phone rang. He saw his father's name on the screen and felt his stomach drop. He had been avoiding this conversation for days. I need to take this, he told Camila, stepping out onto the small balcony. Ricardo Morales didn't wait for pleasantries. I've cancelled the Sinclair contracts as you requested. I've also had my people do a background check on your new wife. Sebastian's jaw clenched. Father. She's an orphan. A cafe worker. No family, no connections, no nothing. Ricardo paused. But the reports also say she's hardworking, honest, and has never accepted charity from anyone. Including, apparently, her wealthy fiancé. Ex-fiancé, Sebastian corrected. The question is, Ricardo continued, did you marry her because you knew this would infuriate me? Or because you actually care about her? Sebastian looked through the sliding door at Camila, who was curled up on the couch with a book, completely absorbed. Does it matter? It matters because I need to know if you're serious about this. If this is another phase you're going through, or if this is real. It's real, Father. I married her. That's all you need to know. Then bring her to the family dinner this Sunday. Let me meet the woman who convinced my son to finally settle down. Sebastian felt panic rise in his chest. Father, she doesn't know who I am. Not really. She thinks I'm just a paramedic. Then you have until Sunday to tell her the truth. Because I guarantee she'll figure it out the moment she sees the estate. The call ended. Sebastian stood on the balcony, looking out at the city lights, wondering how he was going to explain to his new wife that he was actually the heir to the Morales fortune. That the man she said she would never trust again, the rich man, had been sleeping beside her for almost a week. Inside, Camila looked up from her book and smiled at him through the glass. That smile, so genuine and unguarded, made his chest ache. He had 3 days to figure out how to tell her. 3 days before his carefully constructed simple life came crashing down. But first, he needed to help his wife navigate the aftermath of standing up to her bullies. Because despite everything, despite the secrets and lies of omission, one thing was becoming undeniably clear. He was starting to fall for Camila Morales. His accidental wife. His partner in chaos.